Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call our regular meeting of our Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, May 6, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here today are Ben Cherry, Yoni Zamir, Jeff Kennedy, Cynthia Gibbons, and Kathy Hunter. We have a quorum, and we are, as always, ably supported by Chris Sullivan, our land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. It's nice to be here in person. Our agenda tonight was posted on the town website. Tonight in our new business, we have an 8-24 referral from the Board of Selectmen pertaining to Massaro Farm at 41 Ford Road regarding some structural and vegetative activities, including some drainage systems. We also have, as new business, a request for a renewal of the special permit for excavation at 110 Luciani Street. Once we handle our new business, we'll go to our work session, which will include a update or presentation from our consultant on the town plan of conservation and development, who's scheduled to be here a little before 7. Is that right, Chris? Mm-hmm. And we will also tee up our cleanup of the zoning regulations for a upcoming public hearing. Is that correct, Chris?
That is correct.
And then our additional sort of report. We also have to find a new West Rock Ridge representative. All right. So I see we have someone here from Massaro Farms. If you'd like to come on up, introduce yourself. And Chris, I don't think he has to sign in, but unless you want him to.
I didn't give him a sheet.
Oh, there is no sheet even for you to sign in, but please welcome, introduce yourself for the record. And if you could you walk us through the planned activities for improvements at Massaro Farm?
Absolutely. My name is Steve Munno. I'm here on behalf of Massaro Community Farm. I'm here to ask for the town's permission as the landowner of Massaro Community Farm to extend an existing subsurface drain, which we put in about 3 years ago with the engineered design by the Natural Resource Conservation Service to deal with some erosion issues. And over the last few years, what we've seen is that it's worthwhile to extend this a little further than it is already, and the extension is 130 feet as shown on the map there. Because this drainage runs parallel to an existing gravel access road, and where it's letting off now is allowing water to sort of spill into the side of the road and undercut it a little bit. So especially with last year's heavy rain conditions, we saw the road be impacted. And though the road doesn't need to be redone at this stage, my concern, and which I brought to the NRCS, was that continued rain of the nature that we saw in 23 would likely undermine the road significantly, such that we would have to redo the access road. So we're trying to get ahead of that problem. And their solution in bringing their staff out was to extend this just a little bit farther, so 130 feet, which brings it just beyond our deer fencing and will allow it to outlet into the woods. And it does not actually enter into the wetlands, so this is still west of the wetlands area. But it will protect the access road from the outlet area. So that's the basics of what's going on, and we're not requesting any funds from the town. This would be funded by Massaro Farm and with some cost sharing from the NRCS. So they've done the design. It's not my design. They've done a look at it, and so that's what I'm here to request permission for.
And perhaps if you don't mind, just a basic question. It's an underground drainage, but in order to build it, do you need to excavate and then you fill back over? Is that?
Yes, there's a little bit of digging. So it's a perforated pipe, and then there is a fabric liner and then stone above it. So if you were to come out there now, what you would see first, to the west of that, we have a swale, a grassed swale, which is kind of carved out, and then it leads into the perforated pipe area, and so you'll see sort of a stone strip and so the pipe is underneath there and has a liner as well. So it's not a significant amount of digging, but it is a little bit of digging in that space to make room for the pipe.
And the perforated pipe means that water flows through it, but it also is meant to sort of dissipate the water underground and let it sort of seep into the ground
Indeed.
around it.
Yep.
And serious and extreme rain events have kind of sort of shown that at the more challenging end, the current system isn't enough to handle the flow of water.
It can handle the water. It's just the where it's letting out is that it's allowing it to undermine the adjacent road.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's what's happening. So we're carrying it a little further so that it won't impact the road.
Is it a town road, Steve?
No, it's
It's just
on
within
our-
the community that's on the drawing.
Yeah, so
right?
you'll
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it says existing gravel access road, so
Yep,
that
I see
pipe is
that,
running parallel to it, and so it's working as it should, except for that it's spilling and undermining the road. And it's only at the start of that. So last year was an exceptional year, it was of rain, both in terms of amount and continuity. So, I think with climate change, we should expect more of that. Well, now this year might be a drought and it might not be any issue at all. As we saw in 22, there was almost no rain. But, we bring resource concerns to the NRCS and give them an opportunity to address the changes. And happily, they're also willing to cost share doing it so that the burden doesn't fall entirely on us. But ultimately, it's it's a measure to protect our soil and water.
Could I just ask, you mentioned the wetlands. Is it possible to see it on this map that's on the fourth page? Is it possible to see the wetlands on there?
Yeah,
I'm
so
doing
as
this
you,
just for my
you
own-
can sort of tell there's a stream, which, in a year like last year is running for much of the year, but in a year like 22 is dry by summer. So that's your wetland buffer. And I could share, though it's not in the packet, there is another map of the farm that will show the wetlands area, but we're really just to the west of it in this
Sure.
page. So.
I was just really more
Yeah.
curious than anything else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commission members? No. So, Chris, I know I ask this every time that we have an
I
8-24.
was thinking the same thing.
Because I always forget I know we're in an advisory role, but it's worth us doing a motion to.
You find it in conformance with your town plan.
So,
You can, or you can
Yeah.
conversely, very rarely, but it's happened where you've said that you don't.
So I will make a motion to find that the proposed additional erosion control efforts at 41 Ford Road at Massaro Farm are in conformance with our town plan. So it's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Chris, is everyone seated today, or?
Yes, everybody's seated.
Great. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion amongst commission members? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Excellent. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
And should I be wishing you for some rain, but not too much rain?
Yes, that's right. Just the right amount.
Just the right amount of rain this season.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda is the request from 110 Luciani Street and Luciani Properties LLC for a renewal of their special permit for excavation to construct 2 residential homes. I don't see that we have anyone from,
No, I'm surprised he's not here, but this is per section 3.3 and 8C. So the request for the renewal was submitted prior to the expiration of the permit, which was May 1st. And as part of that, there's supposed to be the written request, and then also what you're supposed to have is the map showing that it's in conformance with the plan, and a letter indicating, or a written report by a licensed land surveyor or professional engineer certifying that the operation's in compliance with the permit. So those have been submitted too. Tonight I also gave you a letter that was submitted today along with some pictures that were from a neighbor, Rosalie Rowland, Well, some concerns. One of, I think her main concerns is that this operation won't be continuing for another year. I had contacted the permittee more than a month ago just to remind him that the permit was going to expire, and at that point, he wasn't thinking he was gonna need to renew it. He thought he would have it all completed by May 1st. But that infamous pounding machine broke, and so he lost time because that broke. So presumably, it won't take much longer to finish this, now that the machine's apparently back in order. He has not been doing any work. I did ask, if any work has been continuing. I specifically told him not to after the expiration of the permit, so there has been no work on the site since then. So it's now in your hands. It does not require a public hearing for a renewal, so it's up to you.
Did he indicate how long it would take to finish the job?
Originally, he said he was gonna have it done.
Right.
But then the machine broke.
Right.
So, I don't know if the machine broke a week before, and so he needs another, I don't know what he needs. He didn't say, and he didn't say in his letter of application. So, I don't know.
Is there supposed to be a fence around the property?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
There's a fence at the top of the slope where there was concern that people might fall off the thing. There's a privacy fence on the left-hand side as you look at the property, but because it's such a small-scale project, to be
Yeah.
able to actually access the property, it would, I don't know how you would work it if there was a fence across the front.
But a fence across the front was not part of our requirements for this
No,
permit?
You specifically were concerned about the fence, the top and having potentially a child or something.
It's very steep.
It's very steep, yes. And so part of what you've got is the letter indicating that while it is steep, the slope is stable. And the intent, as soon as this is finished, is to go ahead and build 2 separate houses on 2 separate lots.
Yeah, I
I've
remember
been
that.
told with an ADU in each unit, so that's as much as I know. But those plans haven't been submitted yet because we've yet to finish the project.
Did we retain an engineering firm? Did this commission retain an engineering firm, as the letter states?
We had an original review by your consulting firm, Jim Preedy, but he does not go out and certify as to whether or not the site is in conformance with the plan.
Is there any requirement that anyone do that?
That would be up to you to decide if he would, generally, what you've been trying to do is have the onus or cost of that review upon the applicant rather than upon the town.
Sure.
So is this standard that there's a 1-year approval? Is that typically how that works?
That's the way your regulations are written.
So if we reapprove it tonight, it has to be in 1 year, right?
It can have its own approval length, I believe, because it doesn't have a specific site plan attached to it. The way the statutes are written, if this had a site plan that you were approving at the same time, similar to Toll Brothers, where you had an excavation permit and a site plan, the permit should run as long as the site plan runs. But your regs specifically call it out as being a year, so your regs
Sure.
in this particular kind of a permit.
Are we approaching, let me rephrase that. Do we know when work began at this site?
The permit was issued last May, so
Okay.
it began
Sometime
after
thereafter.
that point.
So I will make a motion to approve the request to extend the special permit, or renew the special permit for excavation for the 2 residential homes at 110 Luciani Street for a period of 1 year. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, before we,
You need a second before you can discuss.
well, I'll
Yeah.
second it. I'll second it.
Thanks. And now we can have discussion, which we should,
Yeah.
more formally, if we're going to have discussion, we should do it inside the motion. So discussion from commission members on this application.
I think we should at least publicly acknowledge they're obviously in the record, but the complaints of that, at least one neighbor has raised about the status of the site and, what they're enduring there. And, sorry, I guess my mic is on, but I'm not sure, based on what, Chris has told us, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot we can really do. It sounded like the machine broke, right? If we're clear about that, the machine broke, there was a delay, and, the property is in the shape that it's in, but it sounds like as soon as practicable, as you clearly stated. But I think it is, really, my purpose is really just to acknowledge that we received those complaints and to sort of show camaraderie with our neighbors that they're enduring that, so.
Other comments, questions?
Was there a projected time frame in the original application that is being exceeded? I guess what I'm trying to understand is whether this project is a significant outlier in terms of, the duration of disturbance that the neighbors are experiencing. If it is an outlier, then maybe it deserves more attention. If not, I'm struggling to see the harm. I mean, I certainly understand nobody wants to live next to an active construction site, but just want to kind of understand whether this is an outlier.
There was some downtime, probably December, January, maybe into February, where material had been excavated, but he was having to find a location to remove it off-site so that he had room, because it's such a small area, to work again. And so there was a time frame when there wasn't pounding, in a sense, being done because you needed to move material in order to do more work. And he was actively looking for places to dispose of that material. And because I think it's shale more than anything, it's not the same thing as having, dirt or
Right.
topsoil or something. Shale isn't what most people are looking for.
Is this the site where the neighbors were concerned about work beginning before the specified hours?
Yes. And since I had emailed him after that was received, and apparently he's been adhering to the hours of operation that he's supposed to.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that the neighbors are both concerned about the project stretching on for longer than it was initially, projected to stretch on, and also work being done outside of the specified hours. So we all want everything to go the way that it's supposed to go, but I'm not hearing a special transgression in this case.
So I have a question about the disposing of the material. Does that have any impact on any of this? Like, in other words, if it's been sitting there for a while, they can't find a spot to put it?
Well,
Is
that
there
was
any-
in the middle of the winter
Right.
when it was there. And so Ben's question was, is he,
Right.
whatever. And so I'm just saying that there was a time frame where work wasn't being done because to remove the material,
He needed to.
but it was clean material because it was material that was down underneath that was being, removed, so. Because one of the concerns that she had was whether or not that needed to be tested, but it's shale that's been down in the ground,
Right, and it's obviously gonna be moved.
and it was moved, yeah.
Might have been thought, did he know we were gonna discuss this tonight?
He knew that it was on the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
Haven't heard from him.
I mean, is there a sense as to how far the project is completed?
As I said, he was gonna have it done, he thought, by May 1st, except that the machine broke. So to me, that means he's almost
done.
done, would have been done, except the machine broke.
With the excavation and the
Right.
sort of hammering. So I drove by it on the way over here, and it is a very large pile of rock.
Right.
It's on a very small sort of
Piece of land.
land. So to the extent he needs, so there will be truck traffic coming soon to their neighborhood to haul away all of that material.
But the pounding should be ceasing.
The pounding will probably be a shorter duration event than some amount of time to move what is the mountain worth of material. Most of it seems to just kind of be there in a pile. And then it'll transition to a construction site.
Right. I mean, there's been no problems with erosion because it's shale and it doesn't erode. I've been out there in rainstorms, water is flowing where it's supposed to be flowing. One thing that she expressed concern about was the location of the portalet being near the road, but you gotta have it where the truck can deliver it, and you gotta have it out of the work path of doing the work which is further back in, so. And you have it there so that things can get taken care of discreetly for workers on the site.
So, Chris, can I ask, just for my own reference too, the neighbor said something about, ensuring their full compliance. I mean, this is just dated April 30th, so this should suffice to answer that.
That's what was required by
Right.
the language of your
So
regulation, yes.
this is, right,
Yeah.
so that addresses. what-
And then the plan shows the contouring that's
Right.
been done, yeah.
Yeah.
And since the applicant isn't here, I guess just to be clear, it sounds like they're responsive to anything that you conveyed to
He's been
them.
responsive. I mean, I must say, anything that, would have been nice if he was adhering without having to been reminded, but, he's been very responsive. There hasn't been any pushback.
May I ask, for my own knowledge, why was a special permit required in this case in the first place?
Well, because it was a pile of shale that was probably 30, 40 feet tall, and to be able to excavate down to create an area where houses could get built, that needed to get removed. This is the last two lots in the whole subdivision.
And that level of excavation requires a special permit under our regulations for excavation of material.
Woodbridge has not really, since I've been here, done what I would call an excavation permit for what typically excavation permits are for, which is like a sand and gravel operation. The only ones I've ever really seen here have been related to construction of residences.
And that's a pile of shale that this organization created in the first place and then needed
They had
permission?
to pound it out, yeah, that's where the pounding comes from. To break up the shale, they needed the pounder to break through it. It wasn't something that they could just use a shovel.
They literally carved it out of the side of the escalation of the area. It got carved out and pounded down.
Yeah,
Okay.
the property had a big rock
Cliff.
cliff in it, and they've now cut into the rock cliff to
I see.
create
To
flat
create the
land.
space to build these
To
two
build
additional
houses.
properties. Thank you, I understand.
Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved. All right, so I think that completes our new business, and timing is good, so should we start with our plan of conservation and development update with our planning consultant? Yeah, if you Good. And it's Robert Connors.
Colin.
Collins, sorry.
I think it says Connors.
And apologies, I haven't met you yet because I
Yes.
missed your presentation previously,
Oh,
so.
I did write how did I write Connors? Boy,
Close.
sorry.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone again and also to meet some of the new faces. Robert Collins, as we've just clarified with SLR, and going to be working with you all to update the plan of conservation and development. Just, primarily wanted to just get things kicked off tonight. Obviously, we've been talking with Chris a little bit and getting things going, and then also looking at the calendar, and then also getting the COG involved with, who will be working with us on developing the map and some of the other data. I do have a brief presentation, just to kind of go through a couple things that we talked about, last time. And then kind of just really talk mainly about the schedule and get your concurrence on some dates kind of in the next 3 months. I have a handout of the presentation, and it depends on whatever you all want to do. I can either pass that around and we can talk from the presentation, or I did bring my laptop if you want to, if there's any way for me to plug it in and put it up on the
Yeah,
screen.
the projector's there, so.
Okay.
I'd love a copy.
Yeah.
For the online or video, which would it help to present?
For Matt's purposes, he can zero in on the screen. We can just turn the light off so that it shows up better.
Great, thanks. And then a copy of this to Chris to
I
make
got
sure, and we can upload it to the town website? Great.
No, sorry, I should have started my computer. It's going to take me a second to get the computer up.
So I guess I can note real quick, one of the things that, as Robert has mentioned, is that SCROG will be assisting us with doing all the map work, in terms of what's needed for the town plan. They're actually looking forward to doing that. And so that's something that's reduced the cost of doing update of the town plan, because that's a service that's being finished through SCROG. I guess there's a cord over there.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, you would come from
Also
the
related
Yeah,
to that,
go ahead,
we haven't
yeah.
coordinated with SCROG before, but we currently work with DCOG on prospective DP calls, and they prepare all the maps. So we're kind of familiar with that kind of process.
Or do you want to move?
Oh, okay. I think that's it. Is it gonna reach? If not, we can plug it in over there and then I'll just, my computer has decided to be very slow tonight.
You know how to work that, because I have not.
You turned it
That's
on.
why I have to. And could you grab those two?
Okay, thanks for your patience in getting that all up and running. We kind of talked a little bit about what our proposed process would be when we met last time, and I just wanted to kind of go over that again real quickly, and then we'll kind of talk about the schedule. So what we had proposed and what we would like to, it's kind of like about a 5 or 6 task process. From initial, where we'll, having this kickoff meeting would be part of the initial, like the very first task, which is all the way on the left side, baseline review and assessment. During that phase, we will also be looking at the state statutes, the SCROG regional plan, the state plan, and we will kind of put that together, like things that changes since your last plan was done. We'll put that together in kind of a summary memo for you and then share that back with you in the near future. That's part of the first phase. Also, we kick off our initial community engagement pieces like the website, as well as the survey that we'll talk about in a minute. That kind of then leads into the next task, which is when we get into the more detail of gathering. We've already gathered kind of data and information from the town during the first phase. In the second task, we're going to be putting together the more detailed community profile, which is going to have demographic, housing, economic factors, but then also a lot of information about existing conditions like zoning, land use, transportation, community facilities, those types of things. That will go together in a comprehensive community profile and existing conditions document that we also will share with you and review as we go through in the next couple months. After that's kind of complete, the next step is that we start to work at, after taking a look at the community survey, other community activities that we've done, conversations with you, we will put together with your involvement vision statement or community vision for the POCD. That will kind of be like our overall vision for what we see for the next 10 years of the POCD. From that vision, we will identify then theme areas for the plan to focus on, even though the state does require us to focus on a series of issues like transportation, housing, those types of things. But we'll make sure that those items fit within the theme areas that we feel are most beneficial for Woodbridge, that kind of fit into a more user-friendly, easier updated POCD. Once we have the vision and theme areas identified, we then move into goals and strategies development, and then that's followed by more detailed action steps and policy development, and then the actual text of the plan. And then that whole plan will then be put together in a series of chapters that we will review with you. Then the very last stage is then obviously the plan adoption, going through the state required 65-day review period, as well as any additional reviews that the town would like to have with the public, and then you have to have a formal public hearing to adopt it, and that should happen next April in order for us to kind of meet your May deadline of next May. And then again, throughout this process at the bottom, there's the collaboration with not only you all, but also the public through a variety of different techniques. Any general questions about the process? We can also kind of loop back to that. So looking at the more deep, so how do we put that, all those different phases, how do we put it into the calendar? And then what does that look like? Obviously the calendar, between starting now with May and then going all the way until next April, there's certain things that we try to avoid, like summertime, when people might be away and off. But sometimes we can't adjust it too much because then we'll be off track. And then we kind of run into the same thing like at the winter time, like with the December holiday season and then cold weather, things like that. So we try to do our best and we try to be flexible, but we want to talk with you too. But we do have some of those kind of obstacles that we have to kind of deal with. So really in the next 3 months, the main thing, like I said, in this month and next month, we're going to be kicking things off with the kickoff meeting with you now, reviewing the existing documents, and then getting some of the initial community engagement pieces underway. The first thing is again, the project website or the story map. And we're actively working on that. And in talking with Chris, we'd like to get that to go live approximately like right after Memorial Day. So maybe like the Tuesday after Memorial Day. We think that that will probably have like a soft launch or, update. And, what we'll do is we prepare the website. We do have some of the examples that I've shared with you previously that you can look at for a POCD. But we will, we'll share that with Chris, and then she will also share the link with you guys so that you can make edits. The good thing about the website or story map is that it's something that can be very easily and actively updated on a daily basis if needed. So after we launch it, if you all feel that there's something missing, or for some reason there's like a paragraph in the explanation about a POCD that you want further, we can quickly update that, and it's not like it all has to be in perfect form like from the day that it launches. It's kind of like a continued work in process. We can also continue to update and load documents or meeting links and things like that. And the main reason why we want to make sure that we get that launched as soon as possible, like right after Memorial Day, is because then the next major step is actually conducting a community survey. And in looking at the calendar, Christine and I, what we're thinking is probably around June 10th, we would launch it. I know that we were kind of fine tuning that. We know that like school gets out right around that time, but we think that there's opportunities for us to reach out to some of the parent associations and things like that to make sure that that maybe gets put in to their very last newsletter or coordination, so that parents kind of see that, even though there's going to be a lot of things going on with graduations and people moving around. We're hopeful that we can get the word out. We're also talking about getting a flyer put into the tax bills, which would be coming out at the end of June. Chris has already talked with that coordination. I forget exactly who you're coordinating with on that, but they've indicated that we could have the back side of the flyer, and we could have the QR code that would take people to the survey. We would also make hard copies available. We'll work again with you all on getting them placed at crucial locations, and then we will try to get the word out with the QR code as well as other links for people to do the survey. In developing the survey, we will put together kind of a draft of kind of like what we see as a good survey for a POCD with asking the right questions. We can also forward some examples. We will, again, also coordinate that with Chris, get them out to you so that you can take a look at those and give us some guidance on like what, how to frame certain questions and get your buy-in before we actually finalize the survey and get it up and running. But that'll probably be happening as well in around the Memorial Day time frame, as far as getting you those examples and then getting some of your feedback. We also will hold the survey open for a little bit longer period of time than we normally would. Normally about 3 weeks is about how long we would want to run it, because if you hold it open any longer than that, you either have to have additional notifications or because it just starts to sit, because most people will, respond to the survey when they first hear about it. But because we're kind of right at that very beginning of the summertime, we will hold it open, I think, into early July. We have at a minimum, we want to get like at least a 2% response rate, but of course anything higher than that would be wonderful. And we will keep you posted on where that is and what you're comfortable with. And we'll continue to do notifications if needed to kind of make sure that we get that survey results rate up into a higher rate as much as we possibly can. 2% may sound kind of low, but it's not a scientific survey because it's not being mailed to everybody. It is a volunteer. But we can draw some conclusions from that. But obviously, if we get 5 or 10%, that would be extremely wonderful. Recently, we did New Canaan's. We did a community survey in New Canaan, and we had a very robust turnout for that one, and we actually got up to 12%. And that was, it was a really nice number, but they did an extensive amount of notification. But we have those options. That would be followed by, after the, sometime in July, once we get this community, and the community survey is, again, it's a virtual platform. SurveyMonkey is what we use, but we will make paper copies available, and then we can gather them to get and insert them into the SurveyMonkey platform for us. And then the SurveyMonkey platform does give us a report, but what we do is we take that report and we turn it into a little bit more of a summary document, and that would be a product that we would be giving to you in July, to sometime in July after the survey is closed. We would review that with you very carefully and then give you not only the summary report but the raw data. There will be both a combination of some short-ended, like yes and no or true and false or pick A, B, and C type of questions, but we will include a few open-ended questions. That's like our, what we would normally recommend, for people to maybe chime in on some subjects where, is there anything else that you want to talk about or things like that type of thing, and it would be open-ended. We do, traditionally, we end up kind of keeping the open-ended questions, we'll put them together like in a word cloud where it's kind of summaried, and we can share them with you, but usually in the summary report, we try to just stick with the closed-ended questions and summaries and things like that. We would then continue to work on the community profile, and in the month of July, but then probably in early September, we would meet with you again to kind of review that overall community profile, as well as kind of start to set the pace for the very first community workshop, which would happen in September. We want to make sure that was after summer and after school starts, so we'll work with you all to kind of pick a date, probably in mid to late September, to have that like open house. And at that open house, we would share the survey results, as well as share some of the highlights of the community profile, and then we would have activities, probably 3 or 4, to kind of where people can kind of go to a station and participate in some kind of activity that would probably be something that we want to explore a little bit further based on what we heard in the survey. A lot of times, like if there's a split, we found this to be usually what the activity ends up being about. Say that there's not really a clear direction that we get from the community survey. Say it has to do with whether there's a need for more passive or active recreation, or if it's active recreation, what type of fields. And say we end up getting like a third split between like soccer fields, baseball fields, and pickleball courts or something like that. We usually then want to have some kind of activity where we try to zero in on that a little bit more to kind of get a little bit more clarity. But that will obviously come to clarity as we move through the process, and we work with you to kind of see what kind of additional activities you all might want to also have us engage the community with. So that's really kind of the next 3 months. Wanted to see if you have any questions, and then also to see if you have comfortability with the survey, the launch of the website, as well as the survey dates, and then the open house dates that we would be targeting. And then also try to get your ideas that you may have or connections that you may have, so that we can start making sure that we're going to get the word out as much as possible to the community about the beginning of the process.
Questions, comments, thoughts from commission members?
I have a question on the website or the story map. Who has access to that? Is that for the planning and zoning commissioners? Is that open to?
Yes, it's open to the entire community, but and how it's done is that we prepare it. It's it's through it's a GIS type of a platform that we were able to create the website. So we don't have to go out and like create a domain name or anything like that. It's something that we create, but then we share a link with the town. Talk to Chris about how we would probably have an announcement on the town's first page of the website, probably an announcement about the POCD update is getting underway. Take a look at the project story map. There's a link to get some basic information, and then be on the lookout for the community survey. Eventually, that link would probably most likely be housed directly on the building and zoning, I believe it's the building and zoning page on the town's website, where we would probably have a link that says, POCD update. And then people would click that, it would open up, and then they would click on another link that would take them to the story map. And then the story map would also be where the survey is housed as well, so somebody could go, the QR code will be to the story map and then to the link that's on the story map to the survey, if they're going to take it virtually.
I have a couple more questions. Keep
Sure.
going, or-
Just a quick follow-up. So I've seen GIS, this is like ArcGIS story map.
Right.
They're wonderful sort of combinations of images and maps, and they're interactive, and you can click on things, and it sort of brings you it's a nice sort of way to display those sort of combinations of information. So I'm looking forward to it. Perhaps for us, if you have an example, New Canaan and others who've done this recently, that you could send us some links so we can see
Yeah,
what the end result may look like.
Right. I know that I do have some here. I don't know if there's web link in here. Is there a Wi-Fi?
We have Wi-Fi, yeah.
Because I can connect to Wi-Fi, and I can actually show you one right now. Also, in the handout that we gave you from the interview, there was some QR codes, and you can actually scan them on your phone and look at them as well. But I can go to that, after in a few minutes, I can show you an active one.
And I just had a couple questions in terms of the information gathering. I see you're looking at reviewing completed plans, ongoing initiatives. In terms of housing, for example, are you going to be meeting with the housing committee, or is it just reviewing the affordability plan? Is it looking at the work we've been doing since we submitted that plan back 2 years ago? How does that look? Because there's a lot of different initiatives going on, and I'm not sure how you are getting updated. Are you looking at the minutes or subsequent reports that go to the Board of Selectmen? I'm not sure how that looks like.
Well, actually, I mean, we're open to suggestions. I mean, Chris will be supplying stuff with us, but you all can supply stuff directly to her for her to get to us.
Okay.
I don't really necessarily envision like myself going out and talking to the housing committee as myself, because I'm kind of a team with you all. We do, when we get down to when we start, so there should be some announcements made that would either come from the town administration or from, the Planning and Zoning Commission, that we could maybe send out a notice to other boards that, you all are working with the consultant and you're starting to update the POCD. They should start to forward to you ideas or thoughts that they have, and then, that's one way initially. Also to let them know to be on the lookout for the website. That is a way for them as a resident or a board member to participate or come to the workshops and things like that, because we want people to come to us, because of, wanting to kind of be in a concentrated effort. But later on in the process also, when we get to the action steps, which is kind of going to be like early next year, after we've kind of concurred with the vision and the goals and strategies, we will host something called roundtable meetings that we'll coordinate with you and organize with Chris it'll be on a certain day, and we'll have like hour slots where like the town engineer comes and speaks with us, the public works director, somebody from the housing committee or from the conservation committee can come, and we'll kind of we want to make sure that we're connecting with whatever their initiatives are and ideas, now that they kind of see what our vision is for the plan, and we make sure that there's that linkage between them. But one of the things that just to kick things off, any documents or committees that you want to, reports that you think we should have and review in advance, just make sure that, you're coordinating that with us so that we can be on the same page.
Okay, so I should submit everything to Chris, and then Chris will get that to you.
That's right, yep.
Okay.
So, Chris, is there any formality to that process? Because I've had members of the Conservation Commission come up to me at social events or otherwise to say, hey, can you come and brief us or have, whatnot. And I do like the approach of actually having them come to us and or focus this. This is an aggressive timeline. It's to get this done, and I think making sure that things happen through our commission, which is charged with the actual creation of this document, is the right way to go. But formally, we need to put out a formal request for them to submit things? Do we invite them to come and give a presentation to us? How has it been done in the past? Chris, here, or Robert, other places, how are they successful in sort of coordinating? And we, just to note that we probably have 75 commissions and committees in this
It's
town.
more than that.
I was underestimating,
You
yeah.
underestimate.
Which,
More than that.
which we could get way too bogged down in if all 75 felt they needed
So I
to.
think it's pretty easy for us to reach out to all of them, because that information is here, and so we can reach out and ask that if, in another, they've got a couple of months where they can meet and discuss, and then forward to us, what their major concerns or viewpoints are and whatnot. The last time we did this, I think Park and Rec came and did a presentation to the whole Town Plan and Zoning Commission, and I think that was pretty much it. So
And not conservation, not,
I don't
Town-owned
recall
properties,
conservation
not-
coming at that
okay.
stage of the game, no. So, it's whatever your comfort level is. If you wanna, you've got 2 meetings now before August, so if you wanted to discuss, having someone come and do a brief presentation to you, you've got 2 meetings where you could gather that information, or we can see what we get by just reaching out to them and saying, hey, we're working on the town plan, we need your thoughts and whatnot.
and Robert, what have you seen that's been successful in other communities?
Well, I think, we kind of talked about it a little bit, and I think it's at the kickoff or the beginning, I think it's important maybe for there to be some kind of memo or memorandum maybe to go around to all the appropriate boards, because, I don't know if the retirement board or whatever would necessarily need to necessarily be involved, but we could identify the ones that we think are the most likely. We could send that notification around, but I think it's also really important to remind folks that are on different boards and commissions that they really, they need to take the survey. They need to make sure that their members take the survey, because that's a way that for us to communicate with everybody, but them also not to maybe be persuaded by like the direction that maybe their board might want to go or something like that. The workshop is another very crucial thing, and I know that in many other communities at the workshop, we have other boards that kind of come in groups, and then they participate in the activities as a group, and it's a great way because we're meeting, we're getting like multiple boards all coming at one night, at the same time. And then lastly, when we get to what we call the roundtable meetings, where we're kind of meeting with people, and mainly town staff, so we want to make sure, but we definitely give the opportunity to boards and commissions, and we can give them like a slot. And those meetings are during the daytime, but if it's inconvenient because people work that are outside of the town staff, people obviously are working, so that's why it's convenient for them. But we can have some of the open or the time slots maybe go into the very early part of the evening if we're good with our time, or they can send their comments to Chris to share with us. They could put it. That happens quite regularly. I know that in Beacon Falls recently, the Conservation Commission met after they got this notification. They summarized their ideas that they felt were related to the POCD, and they forwarded them to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who then forwarded them to us. It is, at the end of the day, I always want to make sure it's clear that, this is because you are the adopting agency. It does represent the entire town, but it is primarily the plan of the planning or the TPZ, because it's your kind of guidance. And so therefore, you can take under consideration what the Conservation Commission tells you, but they shouldn't be the ones that are dictating what's in the plan if you're not comfortable with it. We have seen conflicts on that, for instance, in Southbury, where the Conservation Committee was wanting the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Planning Commission to increase the open space to about 25% of the land in the town. But the Finance Board was adamantly against that because of the expense of that. And so that was a balancing act that their planning commission had to take into consideration and kind of treaded lightly with that one and kind of tried to meet both goals. But then ultimately what the planning commission felt was their priority.
So I think the memo to key boards and commissions, and to the extent you have models or other things, there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel on that type of sort of kickoff communication and sort of identifying the top 10 or so boards and commissions out of our 100. How many?
There's about 100 according to the town clerk, commissions and committees.
Yeah.
Wow.
Would I think be helpful.
I think the idea though of maybe a presentation, but maybe it gets figured out further down, or if something comes up, or like the Parks Department is saying, oh, well, we just did this master plan and there's all kind of projects in it. I think we could help, we could coordinate that as we go through the process. But if something like that doesn't come up, or there's not a subject that you might want another commission to speak on, we wouldn't necessarily have to go that route, but it is a possibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of an effective format to provide input, we had an exercise at our last housing committee, just kind of going through the prior POCD and looking at the housing and demographics chapter, and just looking to see where the changes would be made based on the work that we're doing. So would that be an effective exercise for not only the housing committee, but for conservation or economic development or something of that sort, in terms of how best to convey some context to you?
Are you talking about specific actions that are in the plan now? Because obviously, when we do the community profile and we start to identify some, changing dynamics or something like that, you might want to take that in consideration.
Right.
But I would think that maybe initially you could start to identify things that are going to change, but then maybe kind of keep them on pause until we continue to make some progress. And then probably around that time, when we want to talk more specifically about the action steps, maybe just prior to that, maybe bringing some of those preferred steps, putting them into the housing committee's memo that you would then send to the full TPZ. If that makes sense. But you might want to take a look at the the community profile and also the survey results before you really kind of make clear directives, because that might change some of the thinking that the housing committee maybe has started thinking. If that makes any sense. Okay.
Other questions?
Let's see, I can go out on Wi-Fi real quick.
The password is Woodridge. Don't tell anyone.
Well, you've now told our YouTube audience.
I know. I think they all know.
I think they figured it out.
So just so that you know, the flyer that Robert was talking about, that's included within the tax bills that go out, and everybody gets a tax bill because you all have cars. So, anyway, Park and Rec does a flyer that gives all the concert dates for July, and so that flyer only takes up one side, so it would be a double-sided flyer. And then the information about the survey with the QR code would be on the other side. So,
Well, and while he's bringing up that, are there opportunities like the concert series or town-wide events or the First Selectman's?
well, as Robert
Address,
mentioned, one of
or-
the things I'm going to do is touch base with the superintendent of both Amity Regional and Beecher, so that we can get information out in their newsletters. I've already talked to Mika And he's been doing his newsletter, and so it will go in there. Human Services has, you know, the senior center, we'll have stuff over at the library. So, you know, there's a lot of places that we can reach out, and of course, individually, if you know people or whatnot, that's the way to go too. Because I know when Housing did its survey, we had a pretty good
Well,
response.
it's a response, yeah.
We had like 600 responses, if I remember correctly, so, you know, I think
So I think, I'm sorry, so you did a housing, how long ago was that?
2 years ago, before we did the housing report.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, no, we did a survey, so that's why when you talk about surveys, you know,
yeah.
it's,
Because I think that'll be, we'll want to make sure that we maybe ask slightly different questions or something similar, but then kind of comparing those results
right.
and seeing how anything might have changed in the last 10 years will be good. So make sure, we'll
I can
definitely want
get
to
you
connect
that.
with that.
Yeah, all the results are in the affordable housing plan, so we had two surveys, actually. We had Scrog did a survey for all the towns, but then we kind of localized a survey for Woodbridge, so there's two sets of surveys in there.
And
in the
Woodbridge
plan.
responded very well to both.
Good. The, obviously, the Affordable Housing Plan is a document that we do want to get a copy of, or we'll be looking at, because that's one of the major ones that we have to make sure that we connect with for the POCD update now that that's happening. And usually we have a specific goal and then the strategies, and then we kind of mirror the strategies or action steps that are within that, so that they're kind of embedded in both documents. I'm not seeing a free or a Wi-Fi site. These are the ones
It's
that are.
Woodbridge Gas. Something along that line.
Why am I not, like, it's not coming up?
It's okay.
You can send those to Chris. Chris can send them out to us, and we can check them out.
Where this was on last time's presentation.
It's usually like the
Yeah.
most active ones pop up. Oh,
There you go.
it still says it's got a. is it-
Yeah,
oh,
then you have
Yeah,
to,
it's,
Woodbridge.
Chris told you what the password
Oh.
was. It
Woodbridge.
was just Woodbridge, all lowercase, yeah. There you go.
This particular one doesn't have the link embedded. It's just a QR. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. It'll probably have to go out to the website, but.
It's okay.
But, yeah, I can read forward that, the list of them to you again, you can take a look at them with your phone, so. Is that working?
Yeah, the QR codes work.
Right, okay. Okay, so, any other good, questions about, any of the, like, the survey, getting the website out, and that kind of stuff that we'll be doing over the summer as we lead up to the first, workshop?
Is everyone sort of comfortable with a mid-September workshop as one of those events where we are, in essence, the hosts of that workshop? And
Yeah.
in the lead up to that, sort of figuring out good ways to use us as, discussants, as conveners, as, note taker, however is sort of value in that setting.
Right.
Feel free to use us.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely, have opportunities to talk as we get in advance of that, and then kind of, get everybody on board, either participating in it, or welcome, the open house atmosphere is kind of flexible. You know, we'll talk like what the best timing is. Is it like, 4 to 7? Is it 5 to 8? But it's flexible where people don't have to show up right at 4 o'clock. They can show up at any point. And that obviously allows for, flexibility, but people end up talking with their neighbors. It kind of becomes a social event. We usually like commissioners to maybe be at the sign-in table to welcome people as they come in, but then if you have once we figure out what the tasks or the workstations might be, if there's something about sustainability or recreation and, you have a particular passion about that, maybe housing, you might be able to be at that station along with one of our staff folks to kind of help lead people through the activity. So we'll definitely have plenty of time to kind of plan on that.
And when we plan that date, we'll just make sure that because it's September, that it's avoiding any open houses at the schools or any holidays that we want to dance around and whatnot, so.
The things that will be coming your way in the very near future, and we'll get it going through like email, is we'll be, we'll share you a link with the draft story map before it gets posted, so you can take a look at it. We'll start to send you a draft of the community survey so that you can kind of make some edits and some suggestions. That'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll get the the official date of what we're targeting. It's probably like around June 10th, but we'll kind of zero in on that. And definitely several weeks in advance of that so that you can help us start to get the word out. And any newsletters or groups that you're involved with or other techniques that that you've used to help, just don't hesitate to share that with Chris so that we can make sure that we're touching the greatest audience as possible. And then we will, we'll keep you posted as we start to go through the survey as it gets underway, like where we are with the numbers. But I think we'll definitely plan on holding it open until at least after 4th of July. We'll have a little bit longer. But if we feel like we need to, go even longer, we'll kind of get your concurrence on that. But at the same time, we don't want it to be open too long, but I think sometime in early July would probably be a good time to close it. Okay?
Any other questions? No? Thanks so much. Look forward to working with you over the next few weeks and months.
See everybody again, and we're looking forward to getting things underway.
Great. Okay.
Ben, could you turn the light back on, please? Thank you.
Timeline and everything.
All right. So should we next, speaking of calendars and dates, work on our cleanup of our zoning regulations and scheduling a public hearing?
Yeah, I sent it to you electronically. It does
Yeah.
have,
So,
the, changes so you can see what's happening and whatnot. So, whatever, did I miss? I have no clue.
I did open it. I started to look at it and go through it. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I did look at it. I have it. So we have to have a public hearing, right?
Correct.
So should we read it all first and then tell you if we have any changes, and then have the public hearing, or should we just schedule a public hearing?
We have, at this stage of the game, because of when SCROG meets, they're meeting this week. So we need to get it to them, so probably you'd be looking for, your meeting in July is on Monday, July 1st. So I would say that you schedule a hearing for then, because then that gives SCROG the opportunity to meet in June and get back to you with comment. And that gives you a little bit more time to review it before,
Wait, they comment before the public does?
they have to have 35 days to comment. So they're gonna be meeting this week. We're not gonna have a document to send them.
Right.
But in June, they would be meeting on the 13th. So if you have the rest of this month to review, and we talk about it on the 3rd, I can get it to them before
Oh,
their
okay,
meeting
yeah.
on the 13th. So then when you have your hearing on July 1st, their comments should be able to come in. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Perfect sense.
perfect sense.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Mr.
So
Scroggs.
it gives you
yeah.
more time to review it. It lets me schedule a date so I can let Scrog know, you know, this thing will be coming to you for your June meeting.
And from the June meeting to our July 1, they would,
have time to comment.
they would hopefully come. They have 35 days, but they're usually faster
Yeah,
than
as long
that.
as I can
Well,
get
you
it
said
to them in a
35.
timely fashion before their
Yeah.
regular scheduled meeting.
So I think sounds like a good sequence. So yes, let's schedule it for a public hearing on our July 1st meeting and work backwards from there with adequate review by Scrog.
And I did include, there were a couple of questions that you had to go to town council, so I, based on what he directed or recommended, I made the changes within the text of that. I was predominantly dealing with non-conforming uses and non-conforming uses that had been vacant because there had been statutory changes. So I merged them into one section and then used the language from the statute in there. So, but
Okay.
you're the second set of eyes.
Okay, so when would you like any of our
If-
sort
if you
of
can-
comments or
you know,
suggestions to you?
If you want to discuss it at the meeting on June 3rd, then, you know, hopefully there isn't much to change, and then I can get that to the, you know, do whatever that is, and get them, you know, a PDF of it on the 4th.
That's
So they
good.
would have it well in advance of their meeting on the 13th.
Okay, so we
And
should
that
all,
gives you
That's
some
good.
if you
time.
could
Yeah,
also
yeah.
just give us friendly reminders between now and June 3rd
I
to
can
do
you friendly
that?
reminders.
Thank you.
And there were a couple of changes I did.
Yeah,
So,
well, you sent that to everybody.
yeah.
Via email, yeah.
Yeah. So,
When did you send that out?
today,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't see it,
Was
okay,
it?
yeah, okay.
so.
It's early time.
Okay,
But, you know, I'm not gonna make any changes until you all met, and
Under-
you all agree.
Yeah.
but if you could, to the extent folks, like Kathy did raise, hey,
Yeah, I
some,
can make a master document of suggested,
final edits to tweaks. Thank
Edits.
you, Robert.
yeah.
That we'd have in
And
advance
then I
of,
can make a running thing of that, and then
Great.
we'll have that to look at.
okay. Do you need anything more formal than that, or you're good?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
Andy is not here tonight, so we will skip our report of the Planning Commission of Scrog. Kathy, any updates from the Housing Committee?
Yeah, I have a couple. Some of the members of the Housing Committee did attend the SCROG Housing Task Force meeting in April, and that meeting focused on how towns can support providers in the region, homeless providers that are just dealing with an unprecedented increase of homelessness, and that's directly related to the lack of affordable housing. So what we did at the Earth Day event, 'cause we did participate in the Earth Day event, we highlighted like 3 different homeless providers, New Reach, Columbus House, and Bethel Center. And one of the providers, and this was pretty, I think, compelling in terms of the data. They provided a data from the 211 system, which is like the information system for the state where you call in. And that's like the first step if someone becomes homeless and they're looking for shelter. They call the 211 system. So, you know, we had this information at our table where 192 Woodbridge neighbors called over the past year into the 211 line, which is, again, it's the first step you would take if you had if you became unstable in housing. So a third of those calls were for shelter. So, you know, it just kind of demonstrates that there's folks in Woodbridge that are dealing with housing housing issues and stability. We also had a housing committee meeting last week, which was May 1st. We reviewed the Guilford's recently adopted inclusionary regulations that they recently enacted. And some of those, just to go over some of their requirements in the regulations, their affordability requirements actually kick in with 2 units. They actually require 1 unit to be affordable when there's a 2-unit structure. I'm not sure, I don't think I necessarily would recommend that, because I think that kind of discourages even creating 2 units. I think more naturally affordable housing in a 2-unit realm, it would be beneficial, but I just thought it was interesting. And then the new residential development kicks in. It's subjected to 12% of those units being affordable, where we have 20%. They do it at 12%, which is more of the norm of how many units would be affordable. And they also have some opt-out provisions where you could pay into an affordable house trust fund that's set up in Guilford. And we have some extra handouts from this if anybody's interested. They created an affordable house trust fund where a developer could put in the amount equals to 12% of the total development costs. And so they could opt out by contributing to an affordable housing trust fund. And then that could be used for helping promote affordable housing and to cover pre-development costs, help with, site acquisition options or things of that sort. And we also, their housing committee is now becoming a commission. In Guilford, they were a ad hoc committee under the Economic Development Commission, which I thought was interesting. But it's not surprising because housing is economic development. But they're now becoming a full-fledged commission. So I have the information on that ordinance as well if anybody is interested. And then we also learned that Department of Housing is going to be rolling out a incentive housing zone program. And that's going to be, and that's for creating incentive payments for creating incentive zone areas where there's a higher level of density that's allowed. So they actually, give you incentive payments if you, first, create an affordable housing incentive zone, and then if you actually have a development, you get incentive payments. And that would be, good for even like paying for a planner that we're going to be hiring. It just provides some good incentive payments. So we're looking to have somebody come into the housing committee to talk about this program and how it could be rolled out. And I was thinking maybe I'm not sure if the planning and zoning would be interested in doing a joint meeting, since it would be something that would, come before the commission if we were to do an inclusionary housing zone in the future. So I just wanted to, throw that out there to see if you would be interested in learning more about that, if we brought somebody in from DOH or Partnership for Strong Communities or, a statewide group that does this kind of work.
So thanks, Kat. My only question there is if it does come to us as our sort of regulatory decision-making body, is it okay for us to have a pre-meeting where we're learning about it? I'm guessing it's probably fine, but would want to just check.
I just thought, you'd just become more informed. And it's a way of also put on your planning hat, not only zoning, it's part of like a planning aspect of it as well. So.
And we've done sort of joint training efforts, other sorts of things. If it's in that sort of spirit, I don't see why not. Other reactions, thoughts? You're getting sure.
Okay, well, we're just we're trying to figure out how to actually get units built so that we're into the, out of the planning stage into the actual doing stage. So these are just kind of the pieces we're trying to put in motion. I think the more people are informed about how you could do this type of work, I think the easier it gets.
Great.
So that's it.
So something we might schedule in the coming months?
Well, I was looking, depends when I get somebody in, I wanna talk to, talk to the town first and, make sure that they are in fact interested in doing inclusionary zoning. And this is the route they wanna go down, but if everybody is in agreement, then I would probably wanna schedule that, as soon as possible. So I'm not sure if it would be our next, meeting in June or July, but it would be soon, because it's gonna, from what I understand, this is gonna come out in the next 2 or 3 months, so I think we wanna be prepared, before it comes out.
Okay. So keep us posted on that. Anything else?
No, that's it for now.
Chris?
Is anybody interested in, I have some extra copies of Guilford's inclusionary zoning.
Chris, any reports from with your zoning enforcement officer hat on?
No, not really.
What's it doing,
I also have the housing trust fund.
Yoni, do you want to do a sales and marketing job for your replacement as the West Rockbridge State Park Council representative?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a very worthy and important position. And as Chris corrected me on my email to all of you, that particular advisory council, right, is an advisory council that meets twice a year. I thought it was more frequently than that, but it is twice a year. And I offer it to anyone else who may be interested, I believe. I don't want to speak for anybody, but if someone's interested.
And to note that at the last meeting that we had, they actually had been offered a piece of property here in Woodbridge at the end of Lunar Drive it goes up the face of the West Rock. It's got housing for ravens and peregrine falcons, not people, because it's too steep. But so it was nice, a lot of the land that's out there has been more on the Hamden side. So it was nice to see a piece that was actually in Woodbridge that, and it's something that's viewable, so.
Yoni, those meeting dates are April and October every year, right?
October and April.
Yeah.
Okay.
They start at 4, they very rarely run past 5:30.
And they're during the day?
They're during the day, and they've been
Okay.
holding them via Zoom.
Okay.
Oh, just via Zoom.
Yeah, I used to have them come in here, but now it's via
Well,
Zoom.
sometimes they would meet over.
A long time ago, they met over at West Rock, or the Nature Center.
I went to one of those
Yeah.
when I was commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to, sort of help be a steward of West Rock and to think about the surrounding area, hear from the people who are the day-to-day stewards of the park and the concerns and things that are happening there. So it's certainly it's not that it's not interesting. It's more for me. It's just something on my schedule that I would like to shed. So, but I will do it if nobody else is interested.
Well, Paul's not here, so we can.
We could.
We could give it to Paul.
Yeah.
I had expressed interest when Yoni emailed about it. I mean, I think it sounds interesting. I don't know if I should be adding more to my schedule. Twice a year doesn't sound too bad over Zoom. Sounds like a role with merit.
All right, so do we need a formal,
We can take a formal vote, yeah.
all
Because then
right,
I have to tell them that we've got a new member.
so I will move that Ben Cherry replace Yoni Zamir as our representative to the West Rock Ridge State Park Council. Moved. Anyone seconding?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain for appearances.
Okay. Thank you very much for stepping up. for
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Anything else? Correspondence, which we actually already had as part of our Luciani.
Yeah, and then I also gave you a copy of the latest edition of the newsletter from the Federation of Planning and Zoning Commissions, which has some very interesting information in it. So,
It usually
And they
does.
also have the sheet included in it that's showing you current legislation that's in this session that may or may not impact you.
Yes, the session which ends
When's it end? Like now, right?
Now.
Like
It's coming up, yeah.
2 days.
2 days, sorry.
So maybe in the next one, we'll get an update on.
What actually
passed or not
passed, yeah.
or whatever.
But these are always nice resources. Thank you
Yeah,
for.
they're, it's the only place we seem to get information regarding, you know, anything.
At the state
just
level,
doesn't-
yeah.
I mean, for wetlands, DEEP really, you know, lets you know what's happening in terms of legislative things, but there's nobody out there for you
You're
guys.
short of the law journal doing that, and then somebody plucking those out of the law journal, I don't think you would get that, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, so,
Although it's worth noting, folks, when you read this, you are getting this gentleman's take on, you know, these aren't just summaries, right? This person does have an opinion, and that does tend to infuse a little bit for what that's worth.
but you can always look it up and get a more neutral approach.
Yeah.
At least it's out there on the
Okay.
radar screen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, our last items are approval of minutes. I will move to approve the meetings of our regular meeting of April 1st. Do you have a second? Move to second. Any discussion, edits, comments
I
on?
have one edit, and that's that I was actually not present on April 1st. I'm listed as being present.
Oh,
Even though my name is spelled correctly, which I give kudos to you for doing, I was not actually there,
well, I tried.
unfortunately.
Any other edits? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the April 1st minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't here.
So you got all of that, Chris?
Yeah.
You got all that? 2 abstentions?
Yeah.
You can still approve us out
You
of
still
minutes
approve
if
it,
you
yeah.
weren't
You can
here.
approve it if
So
you
like
weren't
I,
in there, as long as
yeah,
it's
so
not
I
in the
usually
Because we
read
all
it.
know you watched the video
Yeah.
of the hearing.
All right,
Here.
it's,
I'm 1.5.
the minutes are approved.
There we go.
Next, I will move for approval of the minutes of our special meeting of April 10th, 2024. Do you have a second?
Second,
Moved and seconded. This was our
yes,
special
special meeting.
meeting for executive session. Any edits, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, so those minutes have passed. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Oh, just about 8 o'clock on the dot. Thank you all.